All right, what's happening, y'all? It's your boy Rico from StreetScores, and we are here to talk about the winners and losers from that one OTA practice that the media got to view. It was Phase 3, Day 1. We're going to talk about whose stock went up and whose stock went down following that practice. I also have some additional practice clips that I have not given y'all in previous videos yet from that practice as well, so make sure you stay tuned to see those, and I'll put those up there like as we're talking about that specific player. And do we potentially have an elite rookie class on our hands? Even though we only had 5 draft picks, maybe there's something about quality over quantity. And are we potential Super Bowl contenders as well? I have a trivia question for you. I'm gonna give you the answer at the end of the video. The question is, at number 6 overall in 1966, what player did Washington make the first pure kicker ever selected in the first round of the NFL draft? I did not know that answer. That is elite ball knowledge. If you know that without having to Google it or before I tell you the answer at the end of the video, salute. But before we get into everything, make sure you stiff arm that like button, stiff arm the subscription button, and stiff arm the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. Make sure you stay tuned to all of the content. Really appreciate y'all. And instead of wasting even more of y'all time, let's get right into the video, man. Let's get it. Adam. All right, so let's start with the winners. You know what I'm saying? Why not? Let's go ahead and get the winners out the way. You know what I'm saying? And just to let you know, the majority of this video is going to be centered around the winners. Like, I have way more winners than I have losers. Just to let you know, like 80% of this video, winners. Like the last 10, maybe 20%, if that, losers. So just to give you the heads up. But first winner, Trey Amos, second round 2025 rookie draft pick, man. I mean, he had an interception in the practice, and then he also almost had another interception as well, man. He's already looking like a potential week 1 starter, like ready for his jump to the NFL from college, which I keep telling y'all this. I've been saying this for years, videos, live streams, anybody that's willing to listen, that it's between quarterback and cornerback. They have the toughest jobs going from college to the NFL, man. And so when corners can come in and start immediately and look good their rookie seasons, let alone already by week 1, that is a truly special prospect. And this is why I don't believe we'll trade or even go and sign a Jalen Ramsey, even if he gets cut and becomes available, unless he makes the transition to safety. Maybe I can see it. And again, I wouldn't trade for him just post June 1st cut type of thing. And we're going into May 31st by the time this video is coming out, and we'll see what happens the day after that. We'll see Sunday if he ends up getting cut, but only if he gets cut. And only if he's moving to safety, and depending on what money he's asking for, am I willing to get Jalen Ramsey. But cornerback wise, I think we're good to go, especially with Trey Amos. I don't want to bring in another veteran corner that's going to take away snaps and to take away valuable development time away from Trey Amos, both in the practice and on the field on Sundays and during the regular season, postseason, and things like that. I want him playing immediately. What was the point of taking arguably the highest ceiling corner of the entire draft if you're going to bring in a veteran to start over him? I would understand if you took like a Siobhan Revel or something like that, one of those high ceiling boomer bust freak athlete, but he dealt with an injury, or he's still really raw, and maybe a mix of both. I can see then, okay, you bring in Jalen Ramsey to start week 1, and then hopefully that rookie corner learns and develops into a player that can start over Jalen Ramsey eventually some point later in the season. Trey Amos, we drafted him because he was arguably the most versatile corner, the highest floor corner in the entire draft. He has the right size. He can already deal with the bigger, stronger guys. He has the foot quickness and hips to deal with the quicker guys as well, and the scheme versatility to be able to play man coverage, zone coverage, whatever you need him to, man. So he looks like he's ready to make that jump to the NFL. And again, back to my main point, to be a cornerback and to be ready to play well, year 1 is insane. I mean, we already struck with lightning with Mike Sanders still being able to do that out of the second round, and not only at one position but technically 2, slot corner, then being forced to move outside. Now he's moving back to the slot. So we did that last year with him ready to step in immediately. Year 1 as a rookie, ball out. Now it looks like we may have done the same thing with another corner with Trey Amos. So when it comes to this coaching staff and this scouting department's eye for corners, I trust them, man, because like I said, it's really tough for a corner. Even like guys like Derek Stingley, had his ups and downs his rookie season. Like he's great now, but corners just struggle, man. Corners very rarely go from college to the NFL and ball out immediately their rookie season. And that's why my boy Kamari Lassiter, my Georgia Bulldog, is seen as such a special corner, because he was able to do it with the Texans last year. And I think that Trey Amos may be another one of those. Again, it's quarterback and then corner. And I would argue, just based off of how the rules are set up, it's probably even more difficult for a corner to do it than quarterback, especially looking at the level of competition that you're going against. A quarterback, you have the offense tailored around you, and then the defenses in college football aren't usually that great. Typically, offense is ahead of defense in college football. When you get to the NFL level, man, woo-wee, boy, that transition of the wide receivers, you may play against a Jamar Chase level guy once the entire season. You get to the NFL, is every week you're going against somebody ridiculous at wide receiver. So corner, man. So I'm just telling you right now, Trey Amos, he's special. And you're hearing this from a lot of different sources. Like Bram Weinstein went on the Burgundy Zone podcast. Shouts out to my dogs over there at the Burgundy Zone podcast. Make sure y'all follow them on Twitter. Subscribe to the YouTube, everything. They're always doing a great job bringing in so many different people to come interview with them and things like that. Great show. But he went on their show and said about Trey Amos, quote, "That guy looks like a hit," unquote. Already a hit. Not only just a good player, but a hit. Like, basically, how did this guy even make it to the second round for us to even get a chance to get him? Especially towards the end of the second round, because it wasn't like we were picking early in the second round. We were picking towards the back end of it, and this guy looks like he should have easily have been a first round pick type of stuff. And shouts out to George Carmi. He brings up a good point. He said, "I'm high on the Trey Amos pick. At Ole Miss, he played in a scheme that was very similar to Dan Quinn's. There's a reason why they took him over potential upside picks like Siobhan Revel. They saw the vision and fit. Looking forward to his development." I'm excited, man. He's already out here making plays, man. That boy hooping. And then shouts out to Dean Jones of Rigo's Rag. He brings up a lot of great points. He said, "Voluntary organized team activities are at the forefront, kicking off phase 3 of the Washington Commanders' preparations for the 2025 campaign. And according to reports, one high-profile rookie wasted no time in turning heads for all of the right reasons. Adam Peters only had 5 picks during the 2025 NFL draft after some blockbuster trade activity over the offseason. After the general manager opted to resist offers to move back for more capital, finding value was crucial, something the front office leader managed to accomplish in his typically composed manner. The Commanders believe they have found a steal when cornerback Trey Amos slipped through the cracks and landed in their laps at 61 overall in the second round. Peters considered taking the physically imposing defensive back in the first round, so adding him in the ranks late in the second was a no-brainer. Amos's dramatic slide centered on a back issue that popped up during his pre-draft medical assessments. The Commanders didn't seem overly concerned, and with great reason, but it's something to monitor nonetheless. If the former Ole Miss star gets a clear run of luck on the health front, Washington will have a significant difference maker in the secondary, and I truly believe he's literally that, a difference maker. Trey Amos turns on the style with 2 interceptions at Commanders OTAs. There was a lot to like about Amos's contribution during Wednesday's practice. The first-year pro put on a coverage clinic, according to those in attendance. He even managed to snag 2 interceptions during drills. So I was hearing that it was 1 interception and then 1 almost interception. But now I'm hearing from different sources that maybe it was 2 interceptions actually. Now, of course, there is a long way to go and a lot of hard work ahead for Amos. However, the fact that he's already making such a strong early impression represents an exceptional foundation from which to build on. He's only going to get better as we move forward. If the same trend continues over the summer, the Commanders could make him a day 1 starter opposite a 4-time Pro Bowler, Marshawn Lattimore, on the boundary. To say that this is the best case scenario would be an understatement. I completely agree. The Commanders need more from their cornerback unit next season, and they've added 2 potentially key pieces to achieve this objective. Remember, Amos, Lattimore, Mike Sanderstill, Jonathan Jones, and Noah Monogany have the scope to be a highly productive cornerback room. This will be needed when one considers the concerns around Washington's ability to generate pressure with its current options. And that's a good point too, because right now our pass rush still seems to be somewhat of like a concern, or at the very least a question mark for this team right now in a season that we're trying to go to and win a Super Bowl. But hey, at least this secondary looks better, and maybe that should help. Maybe we can get some coverage sacks, because because our coverage is just that much better. And Trey Amos is going to play a large role in that. And then John Keim also added that when he was at the practice, he saw Trey Amos's aggression. He saw that he had really good positioning, and he also said that he used to drive on the ball a lot, and all of those traits stood out. And those are all things that you need to be a really successful corner at the NFL level. And I like the fact that he even pointed those out. He even, like, in his podcast, acknowledged the fact that, like, Benjamin St. Juste and a couple of other guys that we've had here had some bad habits that just they never really seem to grow out of. And he said for Trey Amos, I mean, there's nothing really that bad that we got to worry about, and it looks like he already has a lot of the good that we can build on. I mean, is this guy potentially building up a defensive rookie of the year campaign? Don't sleep. I know edge rushers typically, have an advantage over potentially winning that, but hey, man, if Trey Amos goes out there, he's just starting outside corner, and then we're going to be in all kinds of primetime standalone games where we're the only game everybody's watching, and then we're going to be in the playoffs and things like that. And if he's hooping, locking things down, especially since a lot of quarterbacks may prefer to try him instead of trying Sam Still or Lattimore because they're the veterans, so he may get a lot of targets, and he's swatting those away, getting interceptions. Hey, man, it could happen. Now, also, before we move on to the next winner, I would also like to add that if you're rooting for Michael Gallup to potentially make this final 53-man roster, it's pretty good news to hear that he's being targeted so much, because I know a couple of plays that Trey Amos made were on Michael Gallup and him being targeted by the quarterback. So if you're rooting for Michael Gallup, it's good to hear that he's getting targeted this much this early in off-season practices. So you do not necessarily have to worry about him not getting enough opportunities to show if he still has it or not. So if you're rooting for Michael Gallup, that's also somewhat good news. Now, granted, there were good plays made against them, but at least quarterbacks are giving them the opportunities. Now, moving on, as you see this clip of Jaylen Lane making a really nice catch, Jaylen Lane was definitely one of the winners of that training camp practice. First of all, even before we get to the receiver part of it, him getting direct one-on-one coaching from B. Mitch, the Brian Mitchell. I mean, not only is B. Mitch one of the best returners in the NFL history, but also, you got to remember that B. Mitch did not return kicks until he got to the NFL. He is work ethic personified. And that type of person with that level of success doing it, teaching Jaylen Lane, who already has loads of returning experience coming out of college, is going to potentially be a deadly combination returner-wise. I'm super excited, man. And then also receiver-wise, when Cliff Kingsbury spoke to the media after the practice, and I already did a whole video covering with Cliff Kingsbury, Dan Quinn, Jaden Daniels, Deebo Samuel, and Frankie Louisville had to say in their press conferences after the practice. But specifically Jaylen Lane-wise, Cliff Kingsbury was very complimentary of Jaylen Lane and basically said that they're throwing a lot of different things at him just to kind of like overload his brain, but he's been handling it all very well. They don't want to wait until we get to the regular season and now his brain is scrambled because the speed of the game is faster than what he expected and things like that. They're throwing everything at him now while the game is still somewhat slow. We're not practicing in pads. There's no real contact. So now let's overload you mentally before you're overloaded physically, and to where, if we do that, later, then you'll be overloaded both physically and mentally at the same time. Let's go ahead and get the mental part out of the way. And they're throwing a bunch of stuff at him, like slot receiver, outside receiver, returner, stuff out of the backfield like he did a lot in college. That the reason why a lot of people compare him to Deebo Samuel with all of the running back-like things he does out of the backfield as a wide receiver. They're throwing a lot of different concepts to him, probably a lot of different routes, because I can admit, as much as I like Jaylen Lane, he's not the most crisp and nuanced route runner. They're probably throwing a lot of route concepts at him as well, trying to throw the entire route tree at him to make sure he's fully equipped to go. And Cliff Kingsbury said that he's handling it all very well, and Jaylen Lane seems to be even further ahead in his development than they expected when they thought he was still in the 4th round. And it also seems like every single time we have a practice that's open for the media to see, he's making some type of play, scoring a touchdown, making a big catch or whatever. Like, let's see if he can continue this trend through mandatory minicamp, then through training camp, and then through the preseason. Because he may just be one of those guys that consistently makes plays and consistently applies pressures to defenses and is one of those guys that's always going to have to be accounted for. And that would be huge for helping Terry, Zach Ertz, and Deebo get open even more often. I mean, if you have a fourth guy the defenses have to watch out for every time he's on the field, things can get scary for this offense, man. I'm telling you right now, if Jaylen Lane ends up being as good as what it seems like he's going to be, boy. And then you have Jaden Daniels as your quarterback, man. The sky is the limit. Now, moving on, Deebo Samuel is also a big winner of this practice. I mean, he stepped up into his leadership role already. First of all, with Terry gone, even though Deebo just got here, you could easily argue that he's our most notable receiver that was at the practice as far as like projected talent and impact on this year's offense. And I like the fact that he understood the assignment and acted accordingly. And also how it looked and felt just so natural to him to just step up and be the leader of the wide receiver room. You could tell he wants to be one of the leaders of the team, and it just feels like he would have been doing the same thing even if Terry was there. Even if Terry was at the practice, Deebo Samuel probably would have been doing everything that he could to like be a leader and one of the main vocal guys in the guy that's setting the standard and things like that. I mean, he was out there leading all of the receivers in the drills. Like every time there was a drill to do, he was the first receiver doing the drill and basically setting an example to the rest of the guys of this is how you do this drill. We do it with this level of intensity. We do it with this level of nuance and things like that. I love the fact that he stepped up to the plate and handled that so beautifully immediately. And secondly, him being this motivated as a leader bodes very well for him getting and staying in peak shape to potentially have his best season possible. I mean, he looks like he's locked in and ready to prove everybody wrong. And a lot of people that were there at the practice had great things to say about his fitness and his imposing build. I mean, shouts out to Seawall Sports over there. First, she tweeted, "The name Deebo makes so much sense." And that was before practice even kicked off. Then once they started to get things going and Deebo Samuel started to move around and things like that, she then tweeted like a little less than an hour later, reason 875, "I'm in sports media and not an athlete. I would legit let Deebo Samuel run by me. No way I'm tackling him. That's someone else's problem." So it sounds like Deebo Samuel has the right amount of bulk and muscle, but also the right amount of lean to where he can be as explosive and as quick as possible. It sounds like we're at least physically getting the best of Deebo Samuel this upcoming season. We'll see if he can repeat the production that he had in that 2021 season, but man, at least potentially physically, athleticism wise, fit, all of that type of stuff, stamina, all of that seems like he's ready to go. Now moving on to another winner, the guy throwing on the ball, Jaden Daniels. I mean, I have three main reasons why Jaden Daniels was a winner coming from this practice. First of all, he's gaining chemistry with Deebo Samuel already. I mean, you would prefer Terry McLaurin to be there at the practice, but the fact that he's not, that means more Jaden Daniels targets to Deebo Samuel, and we can go ahead and expedite that chemistry and get that going immediately. So by the time we get to training camp, it looks like Deebo Samuel's always been there. Terry, Deebo, Noah Brown, all of those guys, Jaden Daniels and those guys have been throwing to each other, and they've had chemistry going back from years before. That's how it should look. That's how it should feel when they step on that field, and him getting to be able to throw as many targets to Deebo Samuel as possible right now is only going to contribute to that. And then also, Kingsbury saying that his arm somehow got stronger. Jaden Daniels was arguably already one of the best deep ball throwers in all of football last year as a rookie. Now Cliff Kingsbury is saying that his arm is stronger. Of course, a lot of people had questions about, did Jaden Daniels bulk up? How big are his arms? Is he stronger as a person and things like that? Cliff Kingsbury pretty much kind of wafted off that he's like stronger or anything. He also noted that this is not something mandated by the coaching staff. Like, hey, Jaden, by the time you come back, we need you bigger, stronger, weighing more so you can be more durable. He was like, that wasn't us. That was purely just him deciding to do that on his own. But the fact that he like kind of scoffed away anything about like he's bigger, he's stronger, but he did say, but his arm is stronger though. And that's really interesting. What does that mean? Jaden Daniels' arm is stronger? How is that possible? That's definitely a big winner if it truly actually is right now. And then also, third, to a brief point that I brought up earlier, I mean, if he's adding more muscle to become more durable, that's a huge win as well, man. Jaden Daniels more durable, but also keeping that same speed could be insane. And then I also want to note this, though. Even though Jaden Daniels is a winner, John Com said that Jaden did miss a deep ball to Luke McCaffrey, who was wide open down the field. But like Com said, I'm not worried about Jaden Daniels missing deep shots in May. I'm very sure he's going to hit those in the fall and the winter when we need him to the most. And I'm only mentioning the fact that he missed that deep ball right now, even though he is a winner, because I wouldn't be me if I didn't point out any bad that I've heard as well. Even if it's a good player that had a good overall day, I'm going to bring up a bad moment that they had because I'm just trying to be 100% transparent here. So, moving on to the next winner. The Washington offensive line with Brandon Coleman starting at left guard. That's a winner in itself because this offensive line's best possible ceiling for it to be the best group of 5 on the field at any given moment includes Brandon Coleman being your starting left guard. Tunsil is a perennial Pro Bowl left tackle. Tyler Biadasz is a Pro Bowl center. Samuel Cosmi is a Pro Bowl right guard when healthy, whenever he finally gets back. And then Josh Connolly, when he finally wins the starting right tackle job over Andrew Wiley, has an insanely high ceiling at right tackle. I mean, he's the guy that erased Abdul Carter out of a game last season. No sacks, no pressures, no quarterback hits, no nothing when Oregon played Penn State late last season. And Brandon Coleman is too talented not to start, but you already have Laramie Tunsil and Josh Connolly as your bookend tackles, so it only makes sense to go ahead and place him at one of the guard spots. And I just feel like guard is also where his highest ceiling is at. Even if we didn't have Laramie Tunsil or Josh Connolly, you take away one of them or even both of them, I would still prefer Brandon Coleman at guard. I think that's just where he's going to be best at. That's his calling and his strongest path to becoming a Pro Bowler, in my opinion. But then also, I love how this coaching staff is already working him at left guard specifically. Instead of trying to plug him in at right guard until Samuel Cosmi gets back, and then Coleman will have to adapt again from right guard to left guard, he's already learning how to transition from left tackle to left guard. Don't add another step to that. Thank you, Commanders coaching staff, for being aware of that. Put him at left guard and keep him there for the rest of his career. I mean, we have too much depth on this offensive line to panic about Cosmi potentially not being ready by week 1. We don't got to force Brandon Coleman over there in the meantime. Nick Allegretti started at left guard for us last year and was solid. Wasn't great, but was solid. Most people feel like Andrew Wiley is better at guard anyway, so when in doubt, start Andrew Wiley, move him from right tackle to right guard until Samuel Cosmi gets back. And even then, I hope Josh Connolly starting at right tackle, so Andrew Wiley would just start at right guard, while Connolly starting at right tackle. Cosmi comes back, you just remove Andrew Wiley out of the starting lineup. And then even a guy like Trent Scott, he already looked really good replacing Samuel Cosmi directly in that Lions playoff win after Samuel Cosmi suffered his torn ACL. So you've already seen evidence that Trent Scott can start at right guard for you and play well. And then Nate Herbig was supposed to start for the Steelers offensive line last year, but got hurt super early in the season. So at least one of those guys that I just named can be at least all right at starting in Samuel Cosmi's place until he's ready. No need to rush Cosmi back. So that's another win of the offensive line as a whole. And also, we don't need to rush Samuel Cosmi back from his injury. He can take his time to make sure he's fully 100% ready by the time he touches that field. And then also moving on to our next winner. Speaking of offensive line, another winner was Dan Quinn's consistent message of competition. I love the fact that he says it and he means it. No matter what, no matter how high you were drafted, you were coming in to compete. Like, we assume Josh Connolly will start at right tackle by week 1, but as of right now, he's the second string right tackle behind Andrew Wiley and drills, especially at the part of the practice where the media was able to look. And speaking of competition, there's also seems to be a lot of competition in that wide receiver room as well. Both John Comm and Mitch Tisler mentioned how good Noah Brown has looked so far this offseason, especially in that practice. And with him finally having an entire offseason and training camp to get Kingsbury's offense all the way down and to gain more chemistry with Jaden Daniels, he could be an even better version of himself compared to what he was last year. On top of the fact that we added Deebo Samuel and Jaylen Lane to the room. And then you have 2 former great wide receiver 2s and Michael Gallup and KJ Osborne just fighting for a roster spot. Alongside 2024 third round pick Luke McCaffrey, who's safe because he's only going into his second season. So even if, like, week 1 wise, Luke McCaffrey's the worst receiver that makes the final 53-man roster, we're not worried about him not making the roster at all. But last year, speaking of Luke McCaffrey, I was hoping when we drafted him that he would be like our second or at worst third best receiver, because we hadn't signed Noah Brown yet, and who knew? I didn't know what was going on with our receiver core really outside of Terry McLaurin. Now, Luke McCaffrey may not even be our 5th best wide receiver right now, which is crazy. I'm rooting for him. I hope he balls out. I would love for him to become a great receiver, but man, we don't necessarily like need him to, and that's amazing. For us to go on a Super Bowl run right now, you don't need your 2024 third round pick to step up. It would be nice if he did, and he was getting open quite a bit last year, but just wasn't getting the targets. I'm ready for him, man, to ball out, but we don't need him to. And then shouts out to Seawall Sports again, because she literally tweeted, while watching the practice, wide receiver room equals better. That's it. I'm super excited to hear that. So our wide receiver room, and really just the overall competition of the defensive line, the wide receiver room, all of that is just a big win right there. The competition that we have going on. And just because you were drafted high does not automatically mean you're going to be at the top of the depth chart. You need to earn your way. You need to earn your keep. You need to earn this roster spot. And then also moving on, another winner, Mike Sainristil. He looks like he's primed to become an all-pro slot corner from everything that I'm seeing and hearing from that practice. I mean, while Mitch Tisler was on Craig Hoffman's podcast, he said that Mike Sainristil really stood out in the open practice that was available to the media, which we're breaking down right now. Not even just compared to the other young players, he stood out compared to everybody on the team. I mean, he had several pass breakups from what I'm hearing. He even had a moment where he was having to cover like the big and strong Deebo Samuel and even did a great job against him. And Mitch also said that even though Mikey isn't the biggest trash talker, the plays he made got everybody around him louder, talking louder, playing with more energy and everything like that. So he's a fire starter too. He may not necessarily talk it, but he walks it, and it gets everybody else hype and gets them going and ready to ball out. And Mitch Tisler also said that he expected Sainristil to continue to get better and build on what he did last year, but he may have even taken a larger step forward than even he expected. He expected Sainristil to be better compared to last year going into this year, but he may be even better than what anybody expected. I'm super excited hearing that. And Mitch Tisler also made sure to say that Sainristil was almost purely a slot corner throughout the entire practice. So it sounds like he's making the full transition from outside corner back to his natural position with his highest ceiling and what he's most fit to play at and exceed at, and the ball out. Slot corner. And I believe he will ball out, man. I think a potential Pro Bowl or All-Pro is on the way very soon for Mike Sainristil, especially off of what we're hearing right now. And then John Comm also talked about how Mike Sainristil really stood out in practice as well. And when multiple people feel like you stood out, he must have been one of the best playmakers on the team in that practice. It feels like he's destined to get even more interceptions this upcoming season than he had last year, because he only had 2 last year, and I'm really excited. And then the last winner, the D-line run defense. From the additions that we made this offseason, especially in free agency, of course, we still have some pass rush questions and concerns, but the run defense, that's for sure going to be way better than it was last year. And I already just knew that on paper, but I'm bringing that up right now because even though nobody's in pads yet, so the D-line and the offensive line can't really do much to show you how good they are yet and things like that, but several people that were at the practice and that saw that defensive line said that this defensive line just looks far better suited for stopping the run. And several people gushed over how huge Javon Kinlaw was as a person. To finally see him in person, as monumental of a person he is and things like that. And I forgot exactly who it was, but one of the Commanders beat reporters said that our run defense will be way better up the middle, just simply from having somebody that monstrous and freakishly athletic a part of your interior defensive line. You're not going to be able to just run through that guy. You may try to run around him, but you're not just going to be able to run through Javon Kinlaw. He is too big and strong for all of that. And then I also heard things about Dietrich Wise, like this defensive line alone, just from the front 4 or front 5 that we throw out there, is going to be better at stopping the run this upcoming season than what they were last season. Forget even Bobby Wagner and Frankie Louisville even included in that just yet. They're probably going to be kept clean more often because of how much work this defensive line is going to do, and I'm super excited about that. Now moving on to the losers. I only have 2. First of all, I have Lattimore skipping OTAs. I feel like that's definitely a loser right there. I'm not calling him a loser, but if we're talking about winners and losers of the practice, Lattimore was a loser of that practice. Because first of all, he's improving here. Like, I mean, who are you to go out there and miss practice? Now, granted, I've heard reports that like he never really showed up to OTAs for the Saints, so this is just something he does. He just doesn't show up. But I mean, you haven't done anything, and if anything, I feel like if we just traded for him this offseason like we did with Laramie Tunsil and Deebo Samuel, and he was more of a question mark, then I'd be like, okay, I can kind of see why you're not here. But you went out there for a few games and did not look good. You're not even a question mark. You're more so a concern like, whoa, we saw what you did last year for the Commanders in a burgundy and gold uniform, and it was not pretty. You're not proving here. I think you should be here as often as possible, which also takes me to the point that, I mean, at this point, there's no excuses. I'm one of the people that's over here defending Marshon Lattimore and trying to tell a lot of the Commanders fan base, hey, just chill. I know it didn't look good last year, but I think when he's fully healthy and then he has more time to learn the defense and gain chemistry with the defensive backs around him, I think he'll start the ball out and be the guy that we thought he would be when we traded for him, a Pro Bowl level corner. But when we have OTAs and most of the team is out there, really everybody except for the main three, Terry, Tunsil, and Lattimore, who everybody's been talking about missing practices, everybody else is learning the defense right now. Whatever extra stuff Joe Witt Jr. is installing compared to what he had last year, everybody else is gaining chemistry amongst each other, getting that chemistry down, getting the communication down, which is huge for defensive backs. When everybody else is out here working towards that, and you're not, we can't use that as an excuse anymore as to why you didn't play well last year. Like, clearly that couldn't have been the problem, because if it was, you would already be there working with the other guys on that. And then also, the third reason that this is weird for Lattimore is that you don't really have a contract situation like Terry or Laramie Tunsil. At least I hope not. Terry clearly wants to get paid and deserves to get paid. Laramie Tunsil, you gave up all of that draft capital to get him. I would suggest, I feel like you should pay him before the season starts. With Lattimore, nah, I think you wait. I think he's in the same boat of Deebo Samuel, where I got to see it before I hand you over any more money. So Lattimore, I think you're going to ball out. I really hope you ball out this year. But as far as that one, phase 3, day 1 OTA voluntary practice, you are a loser for that day. And then the last loser, the Commanders fan base. I think it's plain and simple, because think about it. This may be the last open practice we get any clips of to see what's going on, to hear about what's going on, any media availability for potentially like a really long time. Hopefully, we at least get one day of the mandatory minicamp that starts June 10th for them to show us what's going on and us to hear about what's going on. Basically, how I'm able to break down this practice, because guys like John Kahn, Mitch Tisler, and all of those guys were able to go to the practice. If they, most practices, they aren't. And what if we go the entire mandatory minicamp where they don't allow guys like that to go to the practice and tell us what they saw, to show us what they saw with the clips that they record on their phones and things like that? If they don't, we would have to wait until somewhere around like late July, when both fans and media are finally allowed to view training camp practices in person. So I'm really hoping this wasn't the last practice we get to see until late July. If it is, we lose. Or at the very least, I know I do, because I love seeing all of these clips and hearing everything about the team that's going on. I love the updates. Even if I didn't have this YouTube channel, I would just be so hungry for all of these updates. So I know I lost, and I feel like a lot of y'all even feel like we lost. That if this is it, the last any real information we get from a Commanders practice until late July, I'm sad. But yeah, man, that's the end of this video. Please get in the comment section. Let me know if you about everything discussed video. Please still find that like button, still find the subscription button, still find the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release the informative and opinionated video just like this one. Make sure you stay tuned to all of the content. Of course, leave a like on the way out. If you made it this far in the video, salute to you. And just to let you know, the answer to the trivia question was Charlie Gogolak. I hope that's how you pronounce that name. I've never even heard of that player, to be completely honest with you. That's way before my time, and I've taken the time to go back and watch as much old Redskins success 80s 90s stuff as I could, but there's no way I would have known that off the top of my head. So shouts out and salute to any of y'all that already knew that answer off the top of your head without me having to tell you, or without you having to look it up. That's insane ball. Now that's level 5 out of 5 elite ball knowledge. If you knew that one already, that's insane. But of course, let me know in the comment section if you agree or disagree with any of my points as far as my winners, my losers. Let me know if you agree or disagree with any of the micro points I made talking about each player or position group or whatever. And then let me know what additional thoughts you may have that are pertaining to the practice that went down and things like that. Let me know how you feel about everything. Again, make sure you leave a like on the way out. I appreciate y'all. I'm gonna catch y'all later. I'm out.